Good morning, lunatics. Welcome to Morning Java. Morning Java brought to you, as always, John, by our good friends at the Get-Go Cafe and Market. Where right now, you can get that delicious, slow-smoked pulled pork sandwich that is known as the smokestack.
They cook it for 18 hours, which
16, I believe.
16,
close
16,
to 18. But
which is approximately how long most Pirate games last, 16 innings.
They do. When you looked at this, when you saw Trevor Williams start to get into trouble at the beginning of it, you think, oh man, we're looking at a 4+ hour game. There's rain on the horizon, which right now you guys might catch some lightning in the distance, but they got it in at about just under 3 hours, and they came back and they won despite Williams giving up 7 runs. Yeah,
it was quite a comeback for the Pirates, down 7-1 in the third inning, and they chipped away, and then Brian Reynolds hits a 3-run homer to put them ahead, and the bullpen put up all zeros the last 4 innings after Trevor Williams gave up 7 in the fifth, and the bullpen seems to be finally settling down here in the last few days after a real rough stretch. It really got bad in Atlanta last week, but they did well in Miami. They did well against Detroit. Now, I don't think either the Marlins or the Tigers, as I look into my crystal ball, will make the playoffs this year. But still, it is heartening for the Pirates to see their bullpen not come in and give up 5 or 6 runs.
It has to be, especially when you look at a guy like Richard Rodriguez that when, just a month or so ago, you're looking at this guy and thinking, like, man, he's going to get DFA'd and he might never pitch Major League Baseball again. Like, there was something just mentally not going on with his pitch command. He was, just serving up meatballs. He goes out there, he gets the job done for him. And then, of course, Liriano and Vasquez come in and do the rest.
Yeah, he did a really good job, and that's 2 wins in a row for him. And sometimes as a reliever, you got to pitch at the right time to get wins. But nevertheless, two 1-inning scoreless appearances in the last 3 games, and gets to win in both those appearances. And you can just tell the look of relief on his face in the clubhouse tonight. Like, finally, this nightmare might be finally coming to an end, and things are getting back to where they were last year when he had a heck of a year and was one of the better rookie relievers in all of baseball.
All right, I've got one for you, John. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Pete Alonso, talked a lot about both of those guys, Rookie of the Year type candidates. Brian Reynolds is still being slept on. What is the deal here? People in the photo room, people in the crowd obviously know who it is, but I don't think that people understand. He's batting over 350. He's got 6 home runs now, 31 runs scored, like 28 RBIs.
Yeah, I think what happens is he's a victim of the fact he's not playing on a really good team, a team that doesn't get on national TV very often, a team that doesn't get talked about in the national media a whole lot, and the fact that the guy who has 22 home runs, Pete Alonso, plays in New York, so obviously that's going to get a lot. But you are starting, talking to people from other teams, talking to scouts, people like that. They've taken notice of this guy, and they realize that he is, this is no longer like, wow, he's had a good first couple weeks in the big leagues. This is some sustained success now. And, I keep waiting, well, he's got to cool off at some time, but he hasn't. And he's just been tremendous.
I thought he might. I bring up fantasy sometimes. I picked the guy up when he was only owned by like 3 or 4% of leagues on ESPN. Now he's up in the 26%. People still don't widely recognize him, but at 350 plus batting average, and this is a guy now. For the last couple of weeks, he's put up a couple offers.
Yeah.
He goes 0 for 4. He's back in the lineup. He went 0 for 4 or 0 for 5 a week ago. There's a lot of trust from Clint Hurdle. If this guy puts himself in a Silver Slugger situation in the outfield, there's some good batters in the National League. He's got to be in contention for Rookie of the Year if he does that, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think he'll certainly get some votes. Again, it takes a little while longer. He wasn't up at the start of the season. It hasn't been like he's been on the ESPN Sunday night game hitting 2 home runs and having 4 hits in a game where we win season. And for someone like that, it's always an uphill climb. Plus, Pete Alonso had a head start on him by a couple weeks, 3 weeks.
Sure did.
And but it's a long season to go, and I think if he continues to produce like this, or even reasonably close to producing like this, I'm certain he'll get Rookie of the Year votes. Will he win Rookie of the Year? I don't know, but he'll certainly get some votes from the electorate of the Baseball Writers Association.
So we mentioned him briefly at the start of this Java, but Trevor Williams comes back in. Clint Hurdle and he both kind of spoke to. He was asked to wear one when it wasn't looking so great. And then obviously the team rallies, they come behind him. but they spared the bullpen a little bit, and they got him to stretch out the arm in an actual baseball game.
Yeah, it was a real rocky start. He gave up 2 in the first and 5 runs, back-to-back home runs in the second to Nico Goodrum and Brandon Dixon. Not exactly the strongest 4-5 hitters in baseball. But he did finish up strong the last couple innings. And, if you look at some of the other numbers, I know it's hard not to look at the 8-9 hits allowed in 5 innings, but he did have 7 strikeouts. He had no walks, so he was at least throwing the ball over the plate. And 52 of his 69 pitches were strikes. So it wasn't. Sometimes guys come back after they've been on the IL. They have control problems. They have command problems. That wasn't the case. He left some balls up in the first and third inning, but he pitched well after that. And I think that he's on the right track. It's his first time back in a month, and I don't think it's a big reason to be alarmed that he gave up 7 runs tonight. I think he'll certainly be better than that.
Another guy that just came back that I want to talk about real quick. I put out a couple photos during the game. Corey Dickerson, when he was pinch hit for by Melky Cabrera, you get the right-hander Cabrera, who's hitting obviously really well in this season. Comeback of sorts for him. He gets, Clint goes with the matchup. People on the interwebs were not exactly in support of that decision when I put out those photos. Corey Dickerson looked like he was visibly upset for being pinch hit for. He went from player to player. David Eckstein started talking to him, kind of like explaining the situation. Just a matchup thing?
Yeah, that's exactly what Clint Hurdle said after the game, because I was a little surprised they pinch hit that early in the game for him. But
fifth inning, right?
Yeah, in the 5th inning, which usually you don't see a position player get pinch hit for that early unless it's maybe a postseason game. But I was, when I think back on it, I understand the logic of it. They had chipped away. They cut a 7-1 deficit to 7-5. They had a man on, and he didn't want Dickerson up against the left-hander there. He had a good option in Cabrera. It's not like he just put anybody up there. He put up one of the team's best hitters. So even though the move didn't work that inning, Cabrera, didn't get a hit, didn't get on base. I understand the logic of it a lot more than I did at the time. I must admit, I kind of scratched my head for a minute. And like you said, Corey Dickerson clearly wasn't thrilled about it. But when you win, that solves all problems, and Corey was fine and dandy with it after the game.
Yeah, look, 2 nights ago, Hunter and I stood here and we said, hey, Starling Marte, Josh Bell, you've got to be better with runners on base, right? Coach, they've lost a lot of games. Manager decides to make a decision. It didn't work out in that situation, but hey, they won the game, so do what you can.
Absolutely.